If you want to learn how to set up multiple server power supply units in conjunction with your desktop power supply unit and synchronize them all powering up at the same time, and you don't really know where to start, you've landed on the right channel. We're going to go step by step, and we're starting right now. Welcome back to the Savage Mind YouTube channel. I'm Charles, and if this is your first time here and you're interested in building and maintaining a cryptocurrency mining rig and other crypto related stuff, please be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell so you don't miss out on anything. So I wanted to do a quick video to show you how to synchronize powering up multiple power supplies on a single rig. In one of my rigs, I have an 850 watt CORSAIR desktop PSU and two HP 1200 watt PSUs that all power up or off at the same time by using the one button on the ASRock H110 Pro BTC Plus motherboard. So there you go. It all happens at once. You don't have to go around and hit the different power buttons and power on the server PSUs before you power on the motherboard and all that stuff. You don't have to worry about that. It works really well the way that I've got it set up. So let's head over to the lab and take a closer look at what I'm talking about. So why would you use a server PSU in the first place? Well, number one, they typically have an 80 plus titanium efficiency rating. I believe if the server has a blue power plug port like this, then that means that it is a titanium efficiency rating for the 80 plus standard, which means that it's 94% efficient at a 50% load. So you can see in here, I don't know if you can see it or not, but it actually says 94% inside of there. It says 1200 watt and then 94%. Let me know in the comments below if I'm not correct about that, the blue port situation, or the blue port indicating that it's a titanium rating or a 94%. I seem to recall seeing a picture of one that had 94% on the fan over here, like right here, like this one does, but the port was black. So I don't know, maybe it was just a Photoshop picture or something, but I do believe that this blue means that it's actually a 94% titanium efficiency rating. Number two, they are reliable. These server PSUs are super reliable. They're designed to run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. They're just super efficient, super reliable. And last, they are very inexpensive when compared to their same wattage desktop counterparts. You'll be paying like $250 for a good quality modular desktop PSU. That's 1200 watts also. That's more than double the cost of this server PSU. You can find HP 750 watt power supply units that look just like this one, but they're 750 watts for about $40. And a 1200 watt PSU, server PSU like this one, is about $70. The one downside of the server PSUs is that they don't have an easy mounting solution for most rigs, since they are designed to slide into a slot on the back of a server. So you've got this, that's what this little lever is for right here. So you've got these little hooks that come out. Whenever you slide it into the back of the server, it locks in place, and then whenever you need to remove it to replace it, usually it's hot swappable in a server, you would push this button or this lever here and pull it out. That's what this little bar is right here, this little grab bar. So that's how that works. So because you're kind of using a component, this is, again, I call these like a hobby component, because you're putting it into a rig and you're reusing it in a way that it was not designed for. So this is certainly a hobby part when it comes to GPU mining rigs, okay? So the one downside is the mounting. So how are you gonna mount this in a rig? Some rigs have a board, that you can just put it on like this. In my case, what I did was, because I like to use the Veta aluminum rig frames, I just took a piece of plexiglass and made a mount for the PSU to sit on, and I just used Velcro on the bottom, and it actually sits on there pretty well. So it's pretty secure. I use, I think this is called some type of industrial Velcro, so it's super strong. Not that, you're going to be, knocking your rig around, but you don't want your power supply unit to be moving around whenever you're just moving your rig. If you do move it, you don't want to forget, like, hey, I gotta grab these power supply units before they slide in and damage my GPUs, for example. So that's why you want to secure it in some way. And then for the Veta rig, or the Veta frame, I use their extra components that come with their frames, and I just used it on this piece of plexiglass, and it seems to work pretty well. I'll show you that. I'll show you where I mounted it here in a few minutes. Another downside is that they are much louder than desktop PSUs. This is especially true the closer you get to their maximum power draw. So for example, if you're only drawing 600 watts off of this 1200 watt power supply, it's going to be relatively quiet. It's not going to be too loud. But you see it's got this extremely high RPM. This fan is super small. I mean, look at how small that is. So it's got a super high RPM, variable speed, very small fan. So this thing, as you pull more power through it, or you pull more wattage through it, the inside components heat up a little bit, and the more heat that's inside of it, the faster the fan has to spin in order to evacuate the heat from the device. So, and that goes back to the 94% rating and all that stuff with whether or not it can get the heat off of the device, right? So if you only have 600 watts pulling out of this 1200 watt power supply, it's going to be pretty quiet. But the closer you get to 1200 watts, or the maximum for this, the louder it's going to get. This thing, it sounds like a jet engine whenever it gets to the maximum. So it is really super loud. It's a really high whining sound. So in order to use this efficiently, you can see back here, I mean, if you're thinking about this, like, where do I plug in my power supply cables to my GPUs and my other components? Well, technically, again, we're going to go back to a hobby part. That's where a breakout board comes in. They design these little breakout boards to fit on the back of the PSU like this. And this is where you would plug in your VGA or your 6-pin power cables, 12-volt power cables. And these HP server PSUs seem to be the most popular. And since that's what I use, that's what we'll cover in this video. I'm not going to talk about the Dell power supplies because these seem to be crushing it as far as reliability and popularity with miners. So I'm going to stick with the HP 1200 watt PSU. I don't remember all the model numbers. I just know that it's a HP 1200 watt power supply. This particular one is a DPS 1200 FB1A, revision 06F maybe, something like that. But one thing to keep in mind whenever you are getting the components, you have to make sure that you get a breakout board that's going to work with the PSU. So if you look at the pins here, there are some significant things here to notice. I believe if there are 6 pins right here on the end, you see how they're kind of separated out here. If you count them, there's 6. That means, I believe that's how you differentiate what breakout board you actually need. But the breakout board is labeled, it should be labeled, like if you went to Amazon or something like that, it's going to say for HP 1200 watt, 750 watt power supplies, because a 1200 watt and a 750 watt have the same type of power connector here. I believe that these two large ones here are just like a negative and a positive for like 12 volts. So that's what gets broken out here by this board, by this breakout board, and you're able to connect your 6 pins to this, and then out that way to your GPUs and other components and your risers and stuff. In my rig here, I have 10 RX 580s and 2 RX 570s. I don't actually need 2 server PSUs, but but this rig is in my house, and stressing one server PSU by running it near its max wattage caused it to just be too loud and inefficient. So what I do is I run 4 GPUs, 4 risers, and the motherboard off of a 850 watt CORSAIR desktop PSU modular, and 4 GPUs and risers off of each 1200 watt server PSU. Sounds like overkill, and it is a little bit, because like I said, in this rig, in this 12 GPU rig, you really only need one of these, but it was just so loud that I had to do something. So so I bought an extra one. Even buying 2 of them was less than buying one 1200 watt. In order to achieve the maximum efficiency of 94%, these PSUs need to be operating at 50% of maximum load anyway. So whenever I run 4 GPUs and 4 risers off of these, that's about 600 watts. Because I run RX 580s, and actually my RX 570s are off of the main desktop PSUs, so I'm not even using these for that. So these are strictly, basically one of these is powering the risers and GPUs for 4 RX 580s. If you use 220 volts AC, which I may be in the not too distant future wiring up for that, then you could reach a potential 96% efficiency at that 50% load, which is, you know, a little bit of savings each month. Not a big savings, but it's there. So in this video, to complete the steps in this video, you're going to need a 1200 watt or 750 watt server PSU, a desktop PSU, which is over there in my rig already, and you'll need a breakout board, the breakout board. What I use is, I think this is a S Union, but what's important here, okay, so I see this all the time where someone will build a rig and they'll use a breakout board and they'll use a server power supply, but they won't connect the power cable from the desktop PSU, the main power supply, to the one that they use to power on the motherboard, to this 4-pin header here. And not all the breakout boards have the header, but that's what I'm getting at, is whenever you're searching for this, whenever you're searching for these components, you kind of want to make sure that it has a power supply, or it has a power button, and it also has this header here, because this is how you synchronize the power between all the different PSUs. Because if your main PSU is plugged into this, then this will turn the server PSU on whenever you turn on your main power, right? Pretty simple. So you want to find a breakout board with a 4-pin mini Molex power control header. Be sure to get the correct breakout board that matches your PSU. You should be able to figure that out just reading the descriptions on the website. Like if you're using Amazon, it should be on there. The ones I use also have a nice LED readout right here that some people say it's kind of a joke and it's not really that important, but I can tell you this, I find it pretty useful, because I know that if this display shows less than 12 volts DC right here, if it shows like 11.9, 11.8, 11.7, then the PSU, in my eyes, is stressed and it's about to ramp up and start screaming. Okay, so it's important to me anyway to have that on there, because if this says 12 volts in my house anyway, or in my rig, if this says 12 volts, then I'm good. I know that this thing's not going to be that loud, and I know that it's operating efficiently. If it says like 11.5 or 11.6, then you know that the PSU, the whole thing, is stressed, and it's going to start, that fan right there is going to sound like a jet engine, okay? So just keep that in mind. So the first thing you're going to want to do is connect the breakout board to, obviously you're going to mount this somehow in your rig, but you would connect the breakout board to the power supply unit, line up the pins, and just press pretty firmly, get it on there like that. Now, you'll see that this is it's sort of flimsy, not too bad, but I wouldn't want to put a lot of pressure on that, and that's where the mount comes in, right? Because this kind of absorbs some of the pressure that goes onto these ports whenever you plug a power cable into it. So I mean, it's got a pad underneath it, or no, most of them come with a pad. So, you know, you can hold it, you know, and plug the power in, and that's fine. But I like to have something underneath it just to support it. So we'll pretend that this is in my rig. So we'll put it on here like this. We'll plop it down like that, secure the Velcro, right? So what you'll do is that once it's in there, you'll use this Molex to mini Molex connector. Everybody hates Molex, and they are a pain. I'm telling you these. Oh, and this comes with your, or it should come with your power supply. Okay, so this should come with your power supply unit, your desktop power supply unit, and it's pretty much junk. Okay, these pins, just like all Molex connectors, it's junk. These pins, you know, as you're connecting it, they might push out, you know, come unseated. So you want to make sure that, you know, the pins stay all the way out whenever you're plugging the other one in. This one really wasn't that bad. I don't know if it's maybe designed a little bit wider on this end or something, but it wasn't that bad connecting it to my Molex power connectors that come with the PSU. Now, obviously, if you start mixing Molex connectors between different PSUs or different manufacturers, you might get a little bit different result from that, even though it's supposed to be a standard and patent and all that stuff. And if you've been working on computers at all, you know for a fact that these Molex connectors can be a pain. Okay, so what you'll do is you'll take the mini Molex connector, the 4-pin, and connect it to the 4-pin. It's called, on this board, it's actually called a main, what is that? Main detection port. That's what it's actually called. So you'll connect it like this. Plug that in like that. Now this end goes into your power supply, your main desktop power supply, PSU. You'll have to have a Molex connector coming off of it, and you'll plug that into here. Now I've got multiple server PSUs in my rig, so I have the same Molex connector or the same cable feeding this PSU and the other PSU. I don't have any problems there. So now what I like to do is take this over to the rig, install it, and plug up the Molex power supply and or the power supply, the Molex cable to this power supply, and get my rig back up and running, because I took it down for this video just so I could show you this stuff, and I'm losing money. So let's get this thing back in the rig and get this thing powered up. Okay, so now we've got the server PSU set kind of in place here. I've got to get it lined up, and I never was able to get these T-slot nuts really lined up right, and the holes in the plexiglass. So it's kind of a pain, but you know, a little bit of a sacrifice for the video, I guess. Okay, so that's nice and secure in there. So the next thing, remember, this Molex connector here has to be connected to the main PSU, which is down here. You know, a Molex connector coming off of it. So I think I got one here somewhere. Where is it? Did it fall? Okay, so here it is right here. So see if I can get you to see that. So yeah, right here. This is coming off of the main PSU, desktop PSU. So now we get to wrestle with the Molex connector. Oh, you Molex. Oh my gosh. Uh-oh, did that go together? Wow, okay. A little bit easier there. So now we're going to connect our different GPUs. These just go to various GPUs in my configuration here. Actually, they're split. These go up to splitters that go to the GPU and the riser for that GPU. So each one of these goes to a splitter, and then that splitter splits off to power the riser for the GPU and the GPU itself, because there's only the GPUs. These RX 580s I have only have one 8-pin power connector on the top of them, so I lucked out there. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention about these the different breakout boards, they have a new one. I don't know if it's new, or I don't know if this one's new or not, but this has got like a little bitty power button and that's it, right? There's one that I saw recently that had like a switch, and the switch was either synchronized or I can't remember what the other option was, and I don't know what the benefit of it was. I don't really know that much about it. These are fine for me because once you connect that to the power header here, the synchronization header here, you don't have a problem. So I never use, once it's connected this way, I never use this button on the front. I'm always just using the PSU button, or I'm sorry, the power button on the motherboard. So there's really no need. So from here, there is each individual cable here plugged into the PSU, the server PSU, goes from here to a splitter, and then the splitter goes to the top, one side of the splitter goes to the top 8-pin on each GPU, and then the bottom goes to the other end, the other 8-pin goes to the riser on the bottom. And you can probably see right here where not all the, it's an 8-pin, so there's 2 pins on the end here that are not connected to the actual connector, right? So because you only use 6 pins of the connector itself. So let me see if I can probably show you a little bit better on this one, since I've got one that's down, so I can show you this. But see how these 2 pins aren't connected to anything? Since it's an 8-pin connector, you see these 2 aren't going to be connected to anything. And instead of just leaving them flopping around or flopping over to the side, I just go ahead and connect it like you were plugging it in to an 8-pin port. But I just leave it connected like that, and it's fine. So that way it's not just hanging out there. Okay, so I plugged in the power to the server PSU on the back there, and now we're going to hit the power button on the motherboard, and there we go. So that's it. Now you should be confident in setting up your rig with multiple PSUs and synchronizing the powering up and powering down of your rig. If you found this video helpful, please like, share, and subscribe, and click the notification bell so you don't miss out on anything in the future. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.